Hey tubers. Well, really, this is my first video of 2018. All that other crap about me being in Bangkok and hospital and that bullshit. Yeah, it's true. I didn't take any video. I really didn't care. You know, it was a rough trip. They did a lot of terrible things to me. I lived through it and I'm back. And of course, when you're back, you've got to go to work and take care of your day-to-day bull. So, what's going on here? Got the 2003 Tundra, and as always, the front brake pads. Now, I should go into the house and get these pieces. I just got it back from the car dealer. Had them do a timing belt, cam seals, crank seals, water pump, all that stuff at the same time. And they only charged me $766, so I couldn't do it. It's done. It's that kind of maintenance. I want to get another 100,000 miles out of the ride. But one of the problems they said, of course, was, hey, you need new front brakes. Like, I don't always need new front brakes. So I'm going to give these things a whirl. And hopefully you're set up in some place now. See if we can get the camera here where you can actually see what the hell I'm doing. There's two little pins back here, cotter pins. So let's see, we'll just turn this little thing, pull one. Same thing with the bottom, just give it a little spin to get that pin clear. And then just yank it out. It's two. Now they make kits to replace all these little bits and pieces, but we're just doing this one on the cheap as always. Up on the top here, right there, you've got this anti-chatter, whatever it is. So just remember, that's coming out too. I usually hold that while I pull the pin. It didn't pop free, so we will take it free. Okay, there we go. All this stuff, if you just take a minute and look at it, it's pretty self-explanatory. Now, I don't even bother going inside the truck to open the brake fluid reservoir or drain off any liquid. With the down and dirty brake change, it's pretty easy. I also like to wiggle the pads a little bit to hopefully start back the caliper. And then just wiggle and pull, and eventually something will pop out. Man, I'll tell you what though, the hospital in Thailand was really nice. As good as ever. They've, of course, in the last 7 or 8 years raised their prices. But it's still cheaper than being sick in America. And Thailand itself is a friggin' rat hole. Okay, it is just third world. No doubt about it. Third world. And all these little girls, my God, they all think they're worth a friggin' $100 a night to sleep with you. Well, you couldn't pay me to sleep with some of these old fat white men. In fact, if women had to get an erection in order to have sex, none of those old men would be getting laid. If I think about them, I can't have sex. Okay, there's the pads coming out. And then the next thing to do, you can either use a stick if it'll fit in. In this case it won't, so I'm going to use some rubber handles, pliers, but just give your calipers a push in. Get that fluid back up into the reservoir. Okay. Now you still got this other side to pull out, but it'll always come out easier. So there you go, your pads are out. 1, 2. And try to keep your bits and pieces sorted out on the same side so that you can keep track of this stuff. And again, oh, one other thing I should have done. When you're prying on this, your rotor is going to be bouncing around, popping around. You put a nut on it, and this will allow you to pry on the damn thing without it walking away. Because you got to push these bad boys all the way back in. And it'll take a couple of tries for you to force that brake fluid back up into the reservoir. And you're better off now taking an extra second to try to pry as best you can. Because when it comes time to fit the brake pads in, that's when you'll be crying. Now, for you Tundra guys, there's 2 kinds of brake pads for this truck. And I think one's for the 4-wheel drive version. If I've done it right, I've gotten my size. Here we go, all right. A chatter. And a big fat open. Wow, these things really are meaty compared to the old ones. The old ones, I'd say, though, are only about half-life, really. They're not even in the dire need to replace. I mean, look. Half-life. So the car dealer was trying to sell me a premature brake job. Not unnecessary, just unneeded at this time. And we both know there's a difference between what you need and what's necessary. I'm loosening up that rotor to get a little play here. There we go, it started now. Use the pad to try to force the bullshit down. Okay. Now that's one in. Now what you got to do, let me put 2 nuts on to be extra solid. Before I try this next one, because this next one's going to be tight. It always is with new brake pads. So I use these nuts to kind of crush this over as much as possible. And then this time we'll take our stick and see if we can't force a little bit more out of this. Okay. That's probably as much as I can get. Let's find out how badly I've misjudged it. Well, let's put in this thing and see if this fits. Hell yeah, that fits there. So let's see how many of these shims I can stuff in. Now let me just say that right now these the pads are actually rubbing on the friggin' disc. But that really doesn't bother me at all. Now the next thing we install, and this is all reverse order, you put this thing up in the top and in these little holes here. These little holes right here is where you stuff the pin end. Oh, I got it backwards. You know, you ever wonder why something's not working sometimes? It might be you. Oh, man. Come on. There we go. There we go. Now we drive two little suckers back in. Catch the wire. And you drive it home. Then you take one of your two little spring clips. Now some trucks will have just one big wire that connects them both. This bad boy just has these little singles. But they've held all these years, so there we go. Well, tapping sometimes doesn't seem to do it, but a little friendly persuasion seemed to be just what the doctor ordered. There you go. I have just changed the front brake pads on my Tundra, and these things cost like 24 bucks with the tax. These are the silvers, whatever the hell that means. Anyways, I stuffed it all back together the way it was. The rotor actually looks pretty nice. Okay, well, let me shut this off. Well, we're at the other wheel, and I've got the car jacked up. You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to slip the jack stand underneath. So let me get my jack stand right here, and for safety, position it under the friggin' car. There we go. Now if the jack lets loose, I got a jack stand under there to catch me. But yeah, like I was saying before, Thailand is a friggin' rat hole. All the people, they're smiling. The only thing they want from you is your money. And the pollution, the smell. Hey, they use a pickup truck. Instead of a pickup truck, they use a moped. They load them down with boxes, people, work supplies, you name it. It's tied on, strapped onto a moped, and off they go. 250 cc's is considered a big bike over there. And don't even get me started about the damn driving. I mean, none of those people, oh, they know how to drive because they're lucky they're not killing themselves, but none of them are following any way, shape, or form of reasonable rules in driving. If they think there's space, they're stuffing their car through it. Doesn't matter if it's painted 3, 4, 6 lanes, they're adding another spot. So it really can be dangerous and tricky. All right, there's the wheel off. And it's set up to catch just in case. And this one's got the same setup as the last one. Okay, so what are we talking? Just a couple minutes to do this. Pull a pin. Pull a pin. I can hook it. This one's got to be rotated. Well, you can't rotate it, so this one looks like it's got to get pulled out the back then. Let's try this then. Let's pull it to spot. Let's see if we can't rotate this thing. We can't. There we go. There we go. We got a spot where we can grab it. That's 2. Pull these bad boys out. 1. 2. Take out the little safety wire. Done. Now wiggle a brake pad out. Like I said, I give all 4 of them a little bit of a pry or a wiggle because you're really trying to get space on the damn brake pad. Before I forget, Well, this back one seems to want to give it up better. And because I can't seem to pull it out from the middle, it's a top and a bottom pull motion that kind of walks it out. There we go. Okay, that goes like that. Now, let's see if we can't wiggle this one out now that we got that one gone. And there's that one. Okay. Now, where's my new pads? Right here. Ready to go. Okay, right there, ready to go. What I do need to do, though, is get these little plungers to go back in. You know, I didn't even bother to look to see how much was left on this set of pads. About the same as the other. Yeah, about the same as the other. I have replaced them when they've been less worn. And you really do need these nuts to hold that brake disc in place. There we go. All right, let's try that. Okay, we get the shoe, we get all the little pads. Okay, the back one's in nice and easy. Now this front one here might actually be tricky. Let's Can we get the pad in first alone? Yes, we can. And you can use the rotor equally well to crush the other disc in place. And doing that gave me all kinds of room. But I suggest you back it off because you're not going to have any wiggle room on the back set of holes if you're this tight that you can't breathe in. Okay, now put in your safety wire. Come on. Ow, ow. Man, it seems like every time I do a job, there's a little bit of blood involved. You know what I mean? None of these things just go off smooth, easy. There we go. That bad boy's in. Now let's see if we can drive this home. Bingo! Oh, and it even looks like it's a good lineup to take a pin. Done. Contestant number 2. Done. Well, you've just seen it here in real time. What did it take to change the brakes? Like really, 5 minutes? Max? No, 10, let's say 10 minutes in the real world. Now that's done. And again, the pads weren't at the bottom, but they were probably in the safe range to change. And they actually seem to all be wearing fairly evenly. I'd say this side's braking slightly harder than the other side. But the difference isn't worth noticing. Okay, front brakes are now done. I'm actually just taking a second here to see if I see any oil leaks or drips or, you know, what would be causing some extra oil down here. But everything appears to be fairly clean and dry, so hard for me to know if it's old oil, it just got wet and splashing around, or, you know, who knows. Who knows? So I'm not gonna worry about it. I got new brakes. It cost me 24 bucks. just for the hell of it, I've also been putting a dab of anti-seize on the whole thing, just to help it out. You know, some night in the friggin' rain, the mud, all the other bullshit that happens to me, if these at least would come off normally, it would make my world a little bit better. So, I've anti-seized all the cats. And I'm not saying there's not bits of leaves and dirt and other crap on them from being thrown on the ground. Don't get me wrong. But at least they won't hopefully be rusted together. Of course, with as much as I put the wheels on and off, I bet you they come off at least, oh God, 3 times a year? 4 times a year? Yeah, at least 3. Now, he also said the back brake needed to be adjusted. See, I'm trying to do everything that was on that list. The guy gave me. All right. Great job. Good. And of course, the last step is always torque the wheel. Give it a good friggin' squeeze. And I always do the crisscross pattern. There you go. We're done. Hey tubers, let's talk Tundra. I got a 2003, you can actually see it over my shoulder there. It's one of those early generation Tundras, and gotta say I love it. It's got 185,000 plus miles on it and running good. Well, recently I decided to have the dealer change the timing belt because I'm not equipped to do that. And just a maintenance item. They changed the timing belt. And for the this is the second time I've had the timing belt done. And the first time I've had the water pump done. At the same time I had the water pump done, they did the cam seals and the crank seal. They weren't leaking, but I decided, oh, the hell with it, I'll let them go for it. I hope to run the motor 300,000 miles. Listen, let's look at this timing belt, because really, it's in much better shape for about 95,000 miles than I expected. There doesn't really appear to be any wear at first examination, but when you look close, you can actually see one side of all of the grooves are showing wear from, I guess, the direction of spin. That's the side that's always getting rubbed. Because one side it feels, there's a roughness to it. The other side feels smoother. And you can tell by the shine looking at which side is worn and which side is new. So this was just a maintenance item. And not something I felt equipped to fool with. So they got some marks on it. Has to go. Now these seals actually look in pretty good shape. No real scoring or burning. Whether or not they needed to be done, who knows? You know, that's a crapshoot. Whether or not you replace something like this. Like I said, there's no wear, there's no real leak, it's just age, but I did it. Now the water pump. I never replaced the water pump on the first timing belt change because water pumps will go 150,000 easy. This one's got 185, and the truth is, just from feeling it, it feels real tight like new. And when I look at the gasket, it does not appear to show any signs of leakage or seepage, you know, around things. So, you know, whether it needed to be done, I might have been able to go another 100,000 on this. But that's not always the case. Like I said, if you want to play it safe on your second timing belt change, when you're around 200,000 on a Tundra, go for a new water pump, just so you can push that motor even further. Now, the other things I've done to the Tundra is I just got done doing the front brakes, changing out burnt light bulbs everywhere, and the only problem left on this thing is the airbag light comes on, and I've got to get that straightened out by the dealer. Some wire's not carrying the right resistance. But otherwise, man, things running good, looking good. It's got a few leaks and drips and spots, but overall it'll drive another, hopefully, 100,000 miles. But I highly recommend, if you can get your hands on one, they're well worth the money. They run. Okay, well, now it's time to actually make a gate for this new section of the backyard. Hey, if your wife ever says she wants to take up gardening, that means you're digging holes and putting up fence, boys. Yeah, I really wanted to take up gardening.